Welcome to the Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. The 2,000 canceled flights at Southwest Airlines this month cost the company $75 million. And what was the reason for the cancellations? Poll results show that a majority of Americans blame the Biden administration for inflation. Apparently, President Biden is okay with calling parents concerned about their children's education domestic terrorists. And we have a story about a very unusual staircase in a church in New Mexico. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together. Southwest Airlines revealed on Thursday that the disaster that caused thousands of flight cancellations earlier this month cost the company $75 million. The accident resulted in passengers being stranded across the country and sparked speculation that it was caused by a shortage of pilots related to the vaccine mandate announced by the company just a week ago. The Federal Aviation Administration, the company, and the union representing Southwest airline pilots have all denied allegations that the cancellation of flights was caused by protests by unvaccinated workers. CEO Gary Kelly said that the nationwide cancellations and delays were caused by weather problems in Florida and exacerbated by air traffic control problems in the surrounding areas, triggering a chain reaction of canceled flights. Captain Michael Sotoro is the vice president of Southwest Airline Pilots Association. He explained cancellations were caused by scheduling issues and overworked pilots. He said that pilots have been forced to work on their days off due to the frequent reassignment and extended trips, and many have even volunteered to work overtime to help out. He said that Southwest Airline management has not invested in IT to improve stability and efficiency into the schedules. This has culminated in many out-of-position pilots sitting idle in hotels, while at the same time, Southwest is looking for more pilot volunteers to cover the hundreds of flights that no longer have flight crews. Arthur Wheaton, an aviation industry expert at Cornell University's School of Industrial and Labor Relations, believes the failure was the result of excessive cost-cutting during the pandemic. They didn't have enough wiggle room to deal with a hiccup in the system. Henry Hartfeld, president of the Atmosphere Research Group, said, "Gary Kelly can't blame others for the faults of Southwest Airlines. This clearly reflects a failure to anticipate and plan for operational disruptions and clearly illustrates the airline's lack of adequate strategies and programs to recover from these disruptions." According to a new poll released by morning consult Politico on Wednesday, 40% of the people said that Biden's policies are very responsible for inflation, and 22% said he was somewhat responsible. The same number of people who think that the country is on the wrong track. The inflation rate has reached its highest level in 13 years. As the country faces a supply chain crisis and rising fuel prices, American consumers are suffering from sticker shock. The Consumer Price Index noted that the cost of food has increased by 4.6% since last year. Contributing to the increase, the price of meat, poultry, fish, and eggs ranks first in food items at 10.5%. Compared to August of last year, the inflation rate rose by 5.3%, which means that a family with an annual income of about $70,000 pays $175 more per month for food, fuel, and housing. When asked what topped the list of concerns in the upcoming midterm elections, respondents said that economic issues such as wages, employment, taxation, and expenditure topped the list with 38%. In second place, security issues involving terrorism and border security accounted for 18%. Energy issues included carbon emissions, electricity, gasoline costs, and renewable energy garnered 5% of the vote. The poll surveyed 1,998 registered voters between October 16th and the 18th. We have an update on the ongoing situation with Attorney General Merrick Garland and the parents who attend school board meetings. The White House was fully aware of the letter that the National School Board Association, NSBA, wrote to the president, stating that the parents at school board meetings who harass and threaten staff should be classified as domestic terrorists, according to documents obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. And Biden had no problem with such an approach. NSBA member Chip Slavin explained in an email that the letter was sent to President Biden concerning threats to public schools and school board members. They asked for federal cooperation with state and local law enforcement, as well as public schools, to address these serious issues, and also asked for threat assessment regarding the current situation. Additionally, White House staff requested additional information on some of the specific threats. Attorney General Merrick Garland testified during a House Judiciary Committee hearing on oversight of the U.S. Department of Justice on Thursday. Let's hear what he had to say about it.
First sentence of your memo, very first sentence, you said, in recent months there's been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, threats of violence.
Yes.
When did you first review the data showing this so-called disturbing uptick?
So I read the letter, and we have been seeing over time threats.
Whoa. I didn't ask you. So you read the letter, that's your source?
As requested by the NSBA, shortly after the letter was sent to President Joe Biden, the Justice Department issued a memo addressing the situation based only on the letter and stating that the FBI was getting involved. Arizona State University campus police recommended charges Thursday against 4 protesters who filmed themselves accosting Democrat Senator Kyrsten Sinema in a public school restroom because she opposed parts of President Biden's $3.5 trillion spending bill. The Arizona State University Police Department said the 4 should be charged with disrupting an educational institution and disorderly conduct. The crimes are misdemeanors. Back on October 3rd at Arizona State University, members of the Living United for Change in Arizona followed Sinema into a campus restroom and filmed themselves confronting her. According to the video, one of the protesters shouted at Sinema through the door of a cubicle, "Just like we got you elected, we can get you out of office if you don't support what you promised us." Sinema claimed this behavior was not a legitimate form of protest. President Biden later said the incident was inappropriate, but in the political process, it happens to everyone. In Arizona, it is illegal to take pictures or videotape an individual in a restroom where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy. The Federal Reserve released a report on Thursday in which businesses said vaccine mandates were hurting employment and contributing to a shortage of labor. Transportation and technology companies are seeing particularly low labor supply, while many retail, hospitality, and manufacturing companies are also cutting hours or production because they don't have enough workers, the report said. Turnover is high as workers leave for other jobs or retire. Childcare issues and vaccine regulations are widely cited as contributing to the problem, along with COVID-related absenteeism. In its report, the Atlanta Fed said most employers cited concerns about employee mental health, burnout, safety, and the impact of vaccine regulations on company culture. The Boston Fed also said in its report that some manufacturing firms reported higher labor turnover, with some attributing it to a lagging effects of the pandemic, and others saying they quit in response to the vaccine mandate. About 3% of the U.S. workforce, or 4.3 million workers, quit their jobs in August, according to the latest figures from the Labor Department. The figure represents an all-time high since records began in December 2000 and coincides with 10.4 million job openings in the same month. On September 9th, Biden announced the private companies with 100 or more employees would have to mandate vaccinations or subject their workers to weekly COVID-19 testing, as well as mandates for federal contractors, federal employees, and healthcare workers employed by Medicaid or Medicare facilities. As a result, several large companies, including most major airlines and healthcare companies, have begun implementing mandatory vaccine requirements in recent weeks. New York City has expanded mandatory vaccinations to all public employees and even eliminated the testing option. And we wrap up today's episode with a story about a very unusual staircase in a church in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But before we continue, I just want to stress how important it is as the viewer to help us get the truth out to as many people as possible. Please take the time to like this video and share it across all your social media. Also, double check and make sure you are still subscribed to the channel, and click the bell so that you can be notified every time we post a new video. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support. Okay, my friends, let's get back to the show. After listening to so much negative news, let's move on to the story of the miraculous staircase. The spiral staircase at Loretto Chapel has been described as a miracle because of its strange architectural structure. Located in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the chapel is a Gothic revival building with a mix of French spires and fancy glass windows, making it look like a smaller version of the Chapel de Paris. The church took almost 6 years to build, and in 1878, as it was being completed, the craftsmen suddenly realized that there were no stairs to the choir loft. Unfortunately, the architect, Antoine Mouly, had already died. The nuns responsible for building the church called in the local carpenters to discuss the matter. All the carpenters agreed that given the small space inside the church, a staircase would detract from the layout, and suggested that a ladder would be sufficient. But how could members of the choir climb in their robes when the loft was 20 feet up, about 2 stories high? The church is, after all, a sacred place. What would be done to solve the problem? The nuns began to pray to St. Joseph since he had been a carpenter. The nuns held a novena. Perhaps their devotion touched God. On the 9th and final day of the services, a carpenter from a distant land arrived on a donkey, carrying a small toolbox. He agreed to help the church build a staircase on the condition that no one else would be around to watch him while he worked. 3 months later, the carpenter left quietly, leaving behind a beautiful spiral staircase and 33 steps in honor of the 33 years Jesus was on earth. The spiral goes around 2 360-degree circles, turning from the ground to the choir loft, not only taking up little space, but the whole design is so close to the style of the church that it doesn't even look out of place. The nun said that the carpenter used very few basic tools, a squared-off torque, a saw, and a little hot water, and he needed no help. On the day the church opened, everyone came to visit and noticed the unusual staircase. A spiral staircase usually has to have a central column to carry the weight, just like a large beam on the roof of a house. Otherwise, it would be in danger of collapsing. This staircase, which makes 2 full rotations, has no central pillar or other place to support its weight. It just seems to hover there. What is even more amazing is that there is not a single nail, and the whole staircase is so seamlessly integrated that it seems to have grown out of a tree. Walking on it is a bit like stepping on a spring, but there is nothing that makes it feel unsafe. In fact, the staircase is sturdier than one would expect. Actually, there were 12 people standing on the stairs singing together, and it held up beautifully. Many architects and professional carpenters have since come to observe the staircase, but no one can explain why it works without a central column and without nails. The spiral staircase in Loretto Church became famous and was later included in the list of the world's unknown mysteries, known as the Magic Staircase. It is highly likely that this magical staircase was built using a mortise and tenon construction. The mortise and tenon construction is an ancient traditional way of joining elements in woodwork. In ancient China, these intricately designed mortise and tenon constructions were largely established and widely used as early as the spring and autumn period, 2,600 years ago. It is surprising how ancient craftsmen who had no knowledge of 3-dimensional geometry and no concept of building physics could have devised such mechanically sound structures. The Hanging Temple in China was built in AD 491, more than 1,500 years ago. It was built on a cliff halfway up a Sui-Ping mountain with the pavilion suspended in the air and seemingly supported by only a few very slender wooden pillars below. Yet it has survived for thousands of years and is an ingenious structure. Its basic construction is also in mortise and tenon. In a British documentary about the Forbidden City in Beijing, experts made a model on the city on a scale of 1 to 5 and tested it in an earthquake simulation. When the magnitude of the earthquake reached 10.1, 1 step higher than the 2011 earthquake in Japan, the model remained standing. This shows the power of mortise and tenon construction. The amazing carpenter who built the marvelous staircase for the Loretto Chapel also used superb mortise, tenon, and wood bending techniques to build the staircase as a spring, using the properties of the spring, namely the restoring force when stretched or compressed, to counteract the pressure when a person steps on it, acting as a central column in another way. This inspiring legend led to the creation of the book, The Staircase, and the 1998 film starring Barbara Hershey and William Peterson. Question is, where did the inspiration and knowledge come from to build a stunning staircase that still impresses the best craftsmen even today? And that's it for today, my friends. Check out the playlist right here for more eye-opening content. You can join me in the Eye Opener Telegram chat room and follow me on Newmaker, Gab, Parler, and Getter. Now don't forget, please sign up to the email list so that we can stay in touch. I'd like to thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.